We are live. Hello, hello. This is Aaron Roy. Thank you for joining us at another Discover workshop. Today, we have a very, very cool workshop. This is something near and dear to my heart. We're getting to talk through no-code tools, in particular, building with no-code. Christian and Eddie, I'm going to kick it to you guys in just a few moments. But before we get started, we're going to let folks trickle in. And for everyone joining us today, I already see hello in the YouTube chat. What we want is to say hello. Let us know you could hear us. Let us know where you're joining in from. If you can't hear us, we want to fix this now before we get into all the cool content. And we're going to just do some audio checks, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. So, Christian, Eddie, just give me some audio. Say hello and
hello. 1, 2, 3. Test.
Yeah, can I sing something? Like,
I don't know. Please, yeah.
Please,
this is the time to sing before we start.
Yeah, that's
guitar.
Yeah, so maybe I can do like Ave Maria. There you go. That's all the singing from me.
I hear you loud and clear on my side. That sounds great. It looks like folks, please let us know you could actually hear us. I see hellos, which are great, but I want an actual, I hear you. Christian singing is incredible. Eddie's very patient dealing with that. And let us know in the chat before I kick it to him. And for anyone who joins us late, let's say you're joining us. I see some folks. Great. Thank you for letting us know. If you're joining us late today, and perhaps there's something that we cover that you really want to go in depth. Oh, the comments are all coming through now. Great. There will be a replay available. So, we've heard on many of these workshops that you want to stop. Perhaps you want to take a note. Perhaps you want to go back and rewatch a portion. No problem. And for anyone who's registered, anyone who's watching this on YouTube Live right now, we'll send the link out after as well. So don't feel bad if you want to go back and watch different portions. Keep your day job. That's funny. That's good. It's good. We get heckled for all sorts of things.
I love it. Yeah, cool. Sorry for that terrible performance.
I love Tina's comment. Christian, stick to coding. She's
going to be very disappointed when she finds out that we teach no coding.
Exactly.
And that I don't know how to code.
Stick to everything else but singing.
Got it. Well, I think with that's a very natural transition to start this workshop. Before we get started, some of these folks probably know you both. What I would love is, can you give a little bit of background for anyone who's new today to y'all's wonderful content? Let's start with that. When you're ready, we'll bring your presentation up and let's get into it because there's a lot to learn today and a lot to cover.
Let's do it. Yeah, we're going to talk. I'm going to bring you through first that kind of introductory part. We're going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to bring you through a little bit my story, Eddie's story, and how we got this kicked off because it really leads into what we're going to talk about later. So we're going to pretty much jump into the conversation. Eddie is going to join us and kind of take over one of the sections of the presentation. And super excited to be here. Thanks to Aaron, the whole Teachable team, Discover team. You guys are awesome. We're excited about this. So bringing the presentation live.
It's on the screen.
There we go. So as you can all see, the name of this presentation is Building Startups Without Code. And it's a guide for non-technical founders, but also this could be exciting for all types of people. We put this on for like UCLA, USC, Pepperdine, so many different universities, and also accelerator programs like Startup Boost, like 1776, like WeWorks, and people really just see such great value from it. So we hope you can get as much from it as well. Let's go. Let's do this. Let me switch over to where I'm switching over the slides. I'll introduce myself to begin with. My name is Christian Peverelli, as I mentioned, and I was born in Switzerland, grew up pretty much all over the world: Brazil, Cyprus, Spain, Greece, Venezuela. Speak 5 languages. I now live in California, Los Angeles, and I'm the founder of 3 different startups. Been building startups for about 17 years now. Raised capital for 2 of those startups and had an exit. But really, my journey, the shift of my journey, happened when I became the director of a startup program called Startup Boost Los Angeles, where we essentially trained over 100 startups. And those startups went on to raising more than $40 million in funding. So we were partnered with Google, and we would essentially, train these startups over a 6-week period, and we would help them to either get into the likes of Y Combinator, Techstars, or to raise capital for their company. And in that process, I was basically going through about 400 applications every 6 months and realizing, oh my God, for people who are non-technical, or people who don't have access to a lot of funds, these people are spending so much time and money with very little progress. And so that's when, like, actually the time where everything shifted for me, because I've always been a non-technical founder, was when I met Eddie about 6 years ago. So met him at a VC firm called No Name Ventures here in Santa Monica, California. And he was at the time the head of product and innovation, so building awesome products for one of the largest independent agencies in the world. So stuff like machine learning, AI, big data, ad tech, and he was doing that for some massive brands. And so you already met him, but I also, when I got to meet him, basically I also realized that he was incredibly entrepreneurial. And that's what excited me a lot more. He had built and sold several software products. Some of them that he ran as startups, some of them that he literally built to sell. But the most crazy thing to me was that he was building these things for like $100 to $1,000. And at the time, he was running a company called Sizely, where basically he had brought it from 0 to 5 figures in 90 days for $1,000. And that for me definitely caught my attention. And even more so, when I found out he did that without coding, without hiring developers, and without leaving his full-time job, I was like, okay, there's probably some stuff we can learn from. I had been in the classic kind of startup ecosystem, and so this really like impressed me. So first thing I did, obviously, I brought him into to the accelerator and had him mentor a bunch of startups, and that's really where the journey between me and Eddie began. We then went on to realizing that there was just such a big opportunity that big problem that was turned into an opportunity that we had to take advantage of, and we had so much more to bring to the table. And that's really where we started our company, which is called WeAreNoCode. And our goal is essentially to empower tomorrow's digital creators. We are the leading institute for non-technical founders. And the way that we actually bring this kind of empowerment to people who are non-technical is by combining how to build products without having to code, and also how to bring those to market and actually launch them and get customers and turn those first leads into paying customers, and then to figure out what you want to do next. Raise money from investors? Do you want to get into an accelerator like Y Combinator, or do you simply want to bootstrap? So we're very lucky. Very quickly, we became the leading institute and have now students in more than 15 different countries. And we also have partnerships with some of the most reputable universities and sort of big groups, accelerator programs. We also have worked with other people like WeWork and et cetera, et cetera. And so it's just kind of exploded. And it's been a super exciting journey because we literally get to see people going from, I have no technical skills, this is my first startup, to the aha moment where they realize they can actually launch their ideas and build them into products and actually make money from that too. So we're super blessed to do what we do. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about who this is for. We mentioned non-technical, but who a little bit more specifically. The first people are what we call aspiring entrepreneurs. So essentially people who either have one or several ideas or potentially don't have an idea at all, and know that they want to get into entrepreneurship. They kind of already know that they might want to be their own boss one day. And they don't really know where to get started, and they don't necessarily have experience in entrepreneurship. So we really help these people, and at least through this presentation, we're going to be showing you a little bit like kind of the overall methodology, and then we're going to bring you through how we actually teach our students to go about their building processes. The second sort of segment of people who this is for are startup founders. You might be in an accelerator, you might be in an incubator, you might have a school program that is teaching you how to build startups. You've done all the customer discovery, validation, and now you're really at the point where you need to build a product. You need to build your MVP and you need to get it out there. We're going to show you how, leveraging the power of no code, you'll be able to do that, and you don't have to hire expensive people. And so it's super exciting. So let's talk about kind of what we'll be going through. I know this is a lot of like pre-work. I hope it's not boring you too much, but I need to cover this so that the rest can make sense. So essentially, we're going to start off by talking about this non-technical dilemma. Then we're going to kind of unveil the power of no code, tell you what no code even is, and really talk about how it's completely disrupting a lot of industries, but definitely product development and entrepreneurship overall. After that, we'll bring you through the step-by-step process that we use to teach people how to build their tech startups without writing a single line of code. So going from build to launch to monetize. And at the end of all that, we'll be able to jump into some of the questions, probably start out with some questions from you. But we also have a frequently asked questions section, which are like basically the 10 questions we get all the time. So with no further ado, let's jump into some of this context. So let's talk about building startups in 2021. And the first thing I'd like to say is that over the past 17 years building startups, things have changed completely. And they've also changed every 5 years. That being said, I still see people building startups like it's 2010. And that's a huge problem. So let me bring you through that kind of maturity and how it's happened. Essentially, 2005, 2000, if you had a great idea, you knew how to slap together a nice looking pitch deck and some financial forecasts, you could raise funding. Then basically 2010, we saw that you needed more than just an idea. You needed the team to execute it too. That people were investing in teams. After that, you really needed to have a product to be able to get funding. And now basically, if you want to get into like Techstars or Y Combinator, or if you want to raise capital from institutional investors, you really need to have revenue. And you usually need to show revenue and or at least solid traction, which is monthly or weekly active users, for about 3 to 6 months. And they're here to really help you sort of
What a different world. That is crazy.
Yeah, but you know what? Most people didn't get the memo, and it's terrible to see. Like, I'm talking about going through 400 applications and just seeing like $50,000, 2 years spent. And it's just like most of these people are focused on their pitch decks and stuff, and it can just be, anyway, it's like that's what we kind of call the non-technical dilemma. It's just basically this entire thing, and listen, this doesn't mean you can't raise capital. It just means that your likelihood of raising capital, if you don't have revenue or traction, is very low. So putting all your eggs into fundraising and pitch decks, it's kind of a losing game, or it's really putting all your eggs in that basket. If it doesn't work, you have nothing. We really encourage people to build businesses and then to focus in on, okay, now how do I present this business to someone who's going to help me scale it out? So yeah, it's pretty crazy, as you mentioned, Aaron. But so, this all basically means that you have to build a product, launch it in the market, figure out the market fit, and find a way to generate revenue before you can expect help. So it's like, what about non-technical founders? Like, what do we do? And so this is the crossroads that I always call, and essentially the non-technical dilemma, right? So here are the options that are pretty much, you have an idea, you want to build it out. A couple options here, and I'm going to bring you through these. First one is finding a tech co-founder. This, awesome. If you have a tech co-founder, that's awesome. Great. If you don't have one though, like I see so many founders spending a lot of time going to networking events, and it's kind of weird. I mean, I think it's great to meet new people, but oftentimes it's like you find potential future customers, potential partners, but finding someone who's a perfect fit to accompany you on the next 5 to 10 years of your startup journey is like going to a bar and trying to expect to find your soulmate. It's possible. It's just not that likely. So usually people waste a lot of time, and matching with the wrong person ends up in founder disputes, which is I think it's the number 2 reason why startups fail. Number 1 is actually not having a product need. So we can talk about that afterwards, and I can show you the report that talks about that as well. You can check it out on your own. The second option, learning how to code. I don't know about you, but I don't have 3 to 6 years to learn how to become a good coder, which is kind of what it takes usually to build out a full stack MVP. Hiring developers, that is oftentimes I see people spending a lot of money, between $25,000 and $50,000. Also just building their idea, which is a terrible approach to building a business, because usually you're not going to be building the right thing for the right person. And in that process, you can have other frustrations, like constantly trying to translate your vision onto the developer, and constantly having additional charges, because for every little tweak, it's going to cost more money, and the bills pile up. And that's just not an option for some people who just don't have that kind of capital too. But then going offshore, honestly, it's like I've seen few experiences where the founders have been happy with the result. We call it spaghetti code. It's like, yeah, you get it for cheap, and yeah, it's delivered quickly, but you can't really use it. It's incredibly buggy. And guess what? Like, anyone kind of like looks into and audits your software and you're not credible. So that's really like a big problem. And I think up until now, for non-technical people, there are just a bunch of misconceptions that are kind of holding them back. So I wanted to lay those out. And then we're really going to jump straight into kind of like talking about this new way, no code, introducing that. So the first misconception that I see very often is I need to be technical, right? I would argue that 2021 is literally the best year for solo non-technical founders. Happy to talk about that more in the Q&A if you'd like. But essentially, that was the case. A couple of years ago, you could only build very basic landing pages and maybe an e-commerce store, but that has changed dramatically. The second one is I need to leave my 9-to-5. This is a terrible idea. You should not like leave your 9-to-5 to start a business. You should start a business in your spare time. And as you see that you've decreased the risk and there's actual demand behind it and that people are willing to pay for this, then it's basically a much safer way to transition out of your full-time job. So I often see people saying, oh, well, I would have to quit my job to be able to have the time to. It's like, I don't know, maybe you have to figure out where you're putting in your time. And honestly, it doesn't take too much time or money to get things off the ground, which brings me kind of to the next point. Everyone thinks you need a bunch of investors or a bunch of money to hire a huge tech team. That was the case. We'll show you with no code how that is no longer the case at all. And the last thing is literally just the overarching message that the entire startup industry is delivering to people outside of this industry, which is, I need to build a $1 billion business. If this is not a $1 billion idea, it's not even worth it. What's funny here is that there's now a huge shift between, first of all, when you raise capital, you're not your own boss. You don't have the freedom. You don't have all the things that people say they crave when they're looking towards entrepreneurship. So, and venture capital firms, they are not very interested in funding companies that are going to stay at $10, $20 million a year, which sounds insane, but I've literally had VC investors stand up in front and be very honest, really nice guys who are just honest about these kind of things. They expect massive returns, but that pressure doesn't necessarily always have to fall onto you. And we're seeing this whole new generation of people who are like, I'm going to build a company that makes $5 to $10 million a year. I'm going to build it with one buddy or 2 or 3, 4 people. I'm going to have a great life and it's going to be amazing. And I'll be able to sustain it for so many years. So it's also just a shift in mentality. We have to move away from that and nurture a healthier entrepreneurial spirit. If you're just trying to get into entrepreneurship, guess what? Replacing the money you were making in your full-time job is probably the first big goal that you could achieve. We can talk about the rest afterwards, right? Anyway, let's talk about this awesome thing called no code. I'll bring you through some of the basics. Eddie will continue with some examples. And then at the end, we'll talk about the impact and we'll bring you through kind of the process. No code, no code, no code. What is this thing? It's essentially defined as the art of creating something unique. So a solution to a problem that could have been written in code, but where the maker chose to actually do it through more visual methods. So essentially, no code is also known as visual programming. And the best way to understand visual programming, no code, this amazing movement that's been happening over the past 5 years, is to understand the evolution of programming. So let's talk about it. Basically, for those of you who are not aware at all of techie stuff, like every computer understands ones and zeros. It's basically Morse code. And back in the day, we used to have these computers that were the size of your apartment building, and you would put in these punch cards manually and feed them ones and zeros. And then over time, we realized, okay, maybe we need to free up some of our closets from these stacks of punch cards. And that's when programming languages were introduced. Obviously, that was also with increased capability of computers, like processing, all that. But that's where all these other languages came up. And the idea is, hey, there's probably a better way where we can communicate what we want the computer to do with these ones and zeros. And so when we talk about no code, what we're talking about is a visual interface that allows you to build software without necessarily having to write out the individual lines of code or understand coding languages at all, but that allows you to build out custom software based on your requirements. We also talk about it kind of like building blocks of pre-existing code that you're putting together to build your product, or describing it like a way where you would build like PowerPoints and then like visually, and then you would essentially have some of the rules that you would have in Excel. So like if I have I scroll over this button, I want the button to turn from red to blue. So it's as simple as that. It's really just a very innovative new way of building products. And a lot of you might be familiar with some of the like old school no-code tools that I mentioned earlier, where it's like you can build a basic store with storefront with Shopify. It's great for e-commerce, Squarespace. It's great to have like basic websites, Wix as well. But when we talk about this movement called no-code, we're talking about this entire new, very exciting tool sets that basically allow you to build software without coding. They also allow you to automate systems, and that's something that we'll keep a little bit separate for this conversation, because automating systems kind of means that you have systems in place, which means that you already have a startup. So we're going to focus in a little bit on how this works, and I really hope that I can describe this. Again, it's drag and drop functionalities so that you can actually go in and build these front-end design elements, and then you create workflows, and you create this logic, right? When this, then that, right? And so if you were to look at one of these tools, and this is Bubble.io by it's one of the no-code tools that you can use. The workflows, for example, would be something like when someone clicks this, I'm going to sign that user up. So this would be a user sign up button. I'm going to sign him up. It's going to trigger an email that's going to be sent, and that's going to send him to the homepage. So it's really all in plain English in terms of how you want things to work in the workflow. And then it's about basically building things out visually. So that's pretty much it. Let's talk about the benefits. So instead of me kind of giving you like the biased benefits, because I understand all these systems, I wanted to bring a chart that was put together by a venture capital firm that talks about the new model. So there it's no code, and the old model. So this is Forward Partners. They're a VC firm based out of London. And so, you can check out the blog post too. Happy to send that. It's on their blog. Fast Forward is their blog, I believe. So here, the way they compare it is astonishing. It's basically, and we know this because we're doing this all day long, but essentially building things, an MVP in custom in custom software would take about 1 year, whereas when you're building with no code, it's going to take about 6 weeks. So that's like a really big difference. So it's way quicker to build once you know how to use these tools. The other thing is that it costs way less. So before it was kind of like $50,000 to get something off the ground. Now it's like less than $1,000 to build out your product, and you can do it as one person instead of a team of front end, back end, and middleware developers. It's just one person doing the front end, middleware, back end, not even realizing that they're doing most of those because they're using this simple visual interface. And obviously, it just lends itself to anyone who's non-technical, which is the large majority of the world. And so that's why it's so exciting. It's quick to learn. It's quick to build once you've learned. And then it basically costs much cheaper, and you can do it alone, and you can do it even if you're not technical. So the benefits are pretty insane, and it probably sounds like we're full of it right now, but you don't have to believe me. You can literally type no code and go and see all the Forbes articles about it right now. So let's talk about this. It's the early adopter stage. It's basically like learning how to code about 30 years ago. The way I say it is right now it's a huge competitive advantage. And in about 10, 15 years, it'll be a part of every education system. And this will replace most sort of product schools. It'll replace most coding boot camps for people who don't want to work at Google. If you're not looking to be a full-time engineer, like this is definitely your best option. And so, yeah, it's exciting. So let's jump into it. Eddie, he's going to come live. Aaron, if you could bring him live, he's going to talk us through some of these awesome examples. And now you can take my face away because people are probably a bit sick of listening to me.
Welcome back, Eddie.
Thank you. And thank you, Christian. All right, now let's talk about some of the examples to really get an understanding of what's possible. So the first product I would like to introduce is ClearSegment, and ultimately showing you how quickly and cost effectively you can build. So for instance, ClearSegment is a SaaS platform for B2B marketers. It was built in 10 days. Actually, the building part was more 4 days. 6 days was just the thinking part. It was built for $40 total. So this includes the total cost of building this product. To maintain it, it costs roughly $240 for the next 6 months. And again, just to really make sure it's understood, it was all built without writing a single line of code. So next up, we have another tool that I would like to share. It's called Proofreader. Proofreader is a platform allowing you to upload visual content, take a picture, a PowerPoint presentation, a sketch file, and it will essentially identify any typos within your within your file. So this ultimately was built for $500 total cost for 21 days. And the tools that we use, some of the no-code tools that we used in this case was Webflow for the no-code component, and then we tapped into the Google Cloud Vision API, which is an API service for recognizing visual content on images, extracting the text, and we essentially did the proofreading with Language Tool API. So ultimately, we're talking about more complex solutions that also require AI as well as API connections. Next up is another tool called Clamly. This is pretty much a URL shortener that pays you by the minute. In other words, you shorten a link, you share it with an audience. Once an individual opens that link, there will be a cryptocurrency miner on the back end mining cryptocurrency for you. Obviously, this was really popular, and we actually got over 200,000 monthly active users on this platform. However, we had to shut it down because of cryptocurrency miners not being allowed anymore. However, this was built for $600, 14 days, and the total revenue just from this little thing was $38,000.
Not too shabby, right? For 14 days work, that's no complaints.
Yep. Next up is a tool that Christian also introduced. So this is Sizely. This is a tool allowing anyone that sells clothing online to essentially visualize the measurements. This all, again, was built for $1,000 in 90 days, currently at 37,000 users. And the revenue right now is at $12,000 monthly recurring revenue since it's a subscription business. And now I'd like to share some examples from the community that we see in the no-code space that are pretty successful. One is Nadim, who created NewYorkStay. Think of it as a luxury version for Airbnb. He was also a Nontechnical co-founder, and they were able, with no-code, to scale up NewYorkStay to $5 million in revenue, in annual revenue. More importantly, and something that I really want to point out, that in the beginning stages, they were looking for funding. However, something that many no-code founders realize that there's no need for investors or funding because the cost to build and maintain is so low that it doesn't make sense to essentially look for funding unless you want strategic investors to join you. Next up, we have also Dani. She had a really interesting story. So she quit her job without a plan B. And then discovered no-code, similar to many of us here on Twitter or doing a Google search. And then within 8 weeks, she was able to build Scribbly.io, which is a content marketing platform. And within 12 months, she was able to scale it to $20,000 monthly recurring revenue, which is just fantastic. I mean, it's mind-blowing every time I see stories like that. So now, like zooming back, when it comes to building products, be it in this case a web application, an iOS app, or an Android app, think about this. So with no-code, you can build the login function, the sign up, the payment, the database, the user management, as well as various user flows, as well as notifications and so on. For many, that's already a startup. That's already a functioning product that delivers value. However, we see founders that want to essentially have extended functionalities. So for instance, they want a custom AI model. So they can do that. They can tap into a custom AI model, either developed by Google, Amazon, Microsoft, or essentially build out their own entire custom model and tie it back into their solution. If they also want to tap into data sources, such as stock market data, weather data, traffic data, listings data, they can also tap that all back into the app, as well as use, as mentioned, services such as Amazon, Google, AWS, either for their storage services or for the API/machine learning capabilities. They can do so and connect it back into their platform, again, with no code. So you're literally creating that connection with plain English, just writing out the logic in there. So one of the questions that we get most commonly, can I build my startup with no code? And the answer is in many instances, yes. It really depends how much you can. So as mentioned before, for some, 90% of their entire solution can be built. For some, 100% can be built in no code. So what happens with the 10% that are remaining? Well, this 10% that are remaining that are really, really hard. In some instances, you want to hire a developer to build out that 10% function and essentially integrate it back into your no code stack to essentially have a full solution. So it always is a sliding scale. However, in most founders that we have and most ideas that we heard, pretty much 95% can be built with no code. So now, to really show more examples, now let's go over some additional ones. So think about marketplaces such as Airbnb, Upwork, Amazon, Indiegogo, and Fiverr. All of those can be built with no code, allowing you for features such as a profile page, a housing listing, or also something that is a little bit more complicated, figuring out how to do split payments. Let's say you have a marketplace and there are 4 parties that everyone gets a fraction of the fee. So how do you figure out this payment splitting? Also, that can be developed with no code. If you are into social networks, you can also develop platforms such as a YouTube, a LinkedIn, a Twitter, a Facebook, an Instagram, a Pinterest, or a mix in between all of those, allowing you to build features such as a messaging function, notification, and then also features that are very common across all social platforms, like uploading of image, video, or even audio, as we now hear with Clubhouse. For those who just want to focus on app development, that is also possible, allowing you to build powerful apps such as Lyft, Uber, Tinder, WhatsApp, and Instacart, allowing you for functions such as geolocation, messaging, and then also the real-time tracking if you, in this case, built an Uber, a Lyft, or in this case, an Instacart. And then lastly, this is kind of like a really interesting bucket. If you have something, a really more interesting product, you can also build, in this case, a Netflix, a Salesforce CRM platform. This is more for the technical people, as well as a Pipedrive, which is a sales tool for salespeople. You can also build a Slack application, as well as an Eventbrite, or even a video conferencing app such as Zoom, allowing you again for features such as video calls, streaming, and then also various automation scenarios. So one other question that we get most commonly is, how long does it really take me to build this? All of this is great, but how long does it take me? If you're a beginner, it is safe to assume that there's some learning required. Usually you can build out your first MVP or your first product within 30 to 90 days. Once you learn the skills, any other idea usually takes between 10 to 30 days. Some of the examples that I shared that were built out in 10 days or even 14 days, that was usually because I built up some of the skills. And we believe that this is a huge movement, enabling everyone to build powerful solutions. And with that, I'll hand it over to Christian, that really talks about the global impact of no code and what it allows for developers, builders, founders to create. Christian.
Awesome. Am I back?
You are, sir.
Back.
I'm alive.
Welcome back.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, those are just some of the examples. We see people asking, you can build mobile apps, you can build platforms, you can build web apps, you can build progressive web apps, which is basically a web app that lives, that you can also push to the iOS and Android store. It's really impressive. And, we literally are seeing people build the craziest things in no code. It's just a really exciting time right now. But up until now, this has really been reserved to a small number of people who are called developers. They're basically 0.3% of the population, so 1/3 of 1%. And with no code and these sort of visual programming tools, we're talking about giving the opportunity to about 20% of the global population to be able to build products and launch them in the market. So we're going to have very exciting online opportunities, because if you think that all of the online experiences that you had, whether that's on browser or on mobile phones, have been built by a tiny group of people, usually of similar demographic, and now we give the opportunity for a much larger pool of people to come in, it's just super exciting. But this is sort of the point at which I bring you to the big however, because obviously it sounds too good to be true. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. But essentially, the big problem that I see is that building the software is not enough. And most people are not looking to build a product, they're looking to build a business. And that's really why we put together the No Code Startup, which is our program So I'll bring you a bit through that, and then I'll show you the process that we use and that we teach our students to really literally go from like, I have an idea or I don't have an idea, all the way to first paying customers, effectively. So it's an online program for non-technical founders to build, launch, and monetize their startups without writing a single line of code. So again, this combination between a startup accelerator and a product school where we actually teach you the hard skills and a handful of these platforms, the most powerful ones, and help you actually not build the product within the context of actually bringing it to market to turn it into a business. Because if not, we're just a charity, and that's awesome, but we just have to know what we walk into this wanting, right? And so we really teach people how to get users, because even a charity is going to want users. And that's a super important thing, I think. So let's jump right into the process. You're probably wondering sort of the step-by-step process that we use. We basically have it broken down in modules. Our modules are incredibly action-based. It's just about, we're teaching you things and we're showing you how it works. Then we're giving you a template. Let's go. Let's apply this. But essentially, the first step is always going to be customer discovery and development. The idea in this phase is that you need to A, build the right product for the right person, and B, you want to line up customers so that when you've actually built out the entire thing, you have users and you can convert those users into paying customers. So here, basically, it's all about uncovering that market opportunity, getting very targeted and specific about who you're going after in terms of customers. And that all comes from kind of conducting these interviews where we're not talking at all about our idea. We're not talking at all about our product. We're basically gathering insight about people's problems in their life. And we're seeing whether or not we think that A, is this a good customer for the idea I have? Or B, maybe there's problems that they're talking about that are even more interesting to tackle. So really, customer discovery gives us the insight that we need to build the product. So let's go to the next step. Module 2. In this module, basically what we teach is like, okay, now, before doing anything like starting a company or like hiring a bunch of lawyers, let's build some branding, content. Let's put together all the stuff we need to actually build out this first experiment, this first product that we're going to launch in the market, and we're going to start putting in front of customers. So this is branding and content. It's we basically bring people through the step of building out a brand without being a designer, really writing out copy that's in line with your value proposition, which is what essentially you're delivering as value to your end customers, how you can find icons, illustrations, photography, videography, all these different nice things to build out a first product, including aesthetics, color palette. It's very easy. You don't need to be a designer, which is also kind of insane. Anyway, after we've done that, we jump into building a first product. So here we need to put, basically what we're doing is we know what people say they want. Now let's see if, let's bridge that gap between what people say they want and what people actually do. It's a different thing for having someone say, oh, this is a great idea, to actually taking out their credit card and paying for it. And to reduce the risk, we want to basically make that gap as small as possible. So we teach people how to build first products with call to actions that are going to either be getting someone on a call or getting someone to click on a pre-sale. At first, you're really just going to be focusing on trying to get someone's email address. And the idea is you're getting closer and closer to the ultimate validator, which is revenue. As soon as someone takes out their money and they pay for something, you're on the right track. So building your first product, launching it, iterating is super important. And that's what we teach. So through that process, a lot of our students are just like super excited because, they say that this was the biggest hurdle that they ever had. And they either had to hire someone or find someone. And then our program was a huge resource for them because it breaks the entire process down. Ryan's awesome. He joined our program and was successful with it. So it's great to be able to support founders like him and all the others. So module 4, what do you do after that? You've built a product. Now we want to measure stuff. So we need to attach tracking and analytics so that when we get people towards this first product, we know what the heck they're doing. We know where we're losing them. And so we're going to apply things like Hotjar, Google Analytics, and also potentially Mixpanel, depending on what you're building. And really want to understand what metrics we're looking for, what actions are we looking for people to take to begin with. Once we've attached that, we're ready to go out in the market and be like, okay, we have a first product. Let's go out there and actually try to sell it. And this is super interesting because instead of trying to throw marketing at things at first, in startup methodology, we talk about first 100 customers. The reason why you want to do that is because you're learning a lot about people and their objections to buying. And that allows you to kind of, change your script when it comes to further stages of marketing and spending money. You know exactly the things that people are looking for. You know the things that are holding them back. And you also want to get that insight to be able to reduce kind of like the friction when it comes to going out there and selling. Right? If it takes you 10 hours to convince someone to join something, well, then maybe if you reduce that to 2 hours before you spend a bunch of money, that's going to be a lot more effective. So here, we'll teach you sales and marketing, product channel fit, growth hacks, bunch of fun, cool stuff. And after that, basically, we'll go into building deeper no-code MVPs. So here it's all about, okay, great. We know exactly what people are willing to pay for. We have some lined up customers. And now we know the feature list that they want to pay for. Let's identify the best tools to build that specific thing with. And then we teach people basically the click-by-click of these. Everyone's going to have a different stack. So we'll orient you towards the best one for what you're trying to accomplish. And the great thing is, since you're learning these tools, like these are repeatable skills. The process, but also the tools. And so, we help people build MVPs this way. This is the wrong way of building. So if you're trying to solve the transportation problem, it's like you don't want to build every iteration where only the last iteration actually works to solve the problem, which is getting from one place to the next quickly. You want to build it like this, where you're solving the problem, but every time you're solving it better and better and better. This means that the skateboard, you can already go out there and sell, whereas the 2 wheels, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult if you're selling the promise of quicker transportation. So that's the approach for MVPs. We just happen to believe that no-code is the best way to get things off the ground quickly. And after that, once you've finished everything, great. Now you've built a business, you have customers, people are getting excited to talk to you, investors, accelerators. So in these modules, we basically teach you how to structure pitch decks, how to put together decks that speak with you or without you in the room, because there are 2 types of decks. Then putting together a financial forecast, like what does your business look like over time based on the figures you already have, and how is that going to scale out? And then, and by the way, you don't have to be good at math. A lot of people are scared of these things. It's not rocket science. That's what I really want to emphasize. Like, none of this stuff is rocket science. People in the tech industry for a long time, like every industry, they have a lot of jargon, and it makes people feel scared, and it makes people feel like if they don't understand what HTML means, they don't have a future in tech. I can tell you, 20 years ago, I didn't even know how to freaking put an email account together, So anyway, the modules at the end are really focused around raising capital, understanding the different avenues that you can take, and making a conscious decision once you choose to either raise capital or to bootstrap or to get into an accelerator, and also to stand out. There's a lot of competition. We even have an extra bonus module. This is for people who don't have ideas or have a bunch of ideas. We'll help you essentially source ideas, how you can find good opportunities, but then also how you can evaluate your ideas against each other and choose which ones to focus on. Never build more than one startup at a time or one idea at a time. You will just be not focused and dispersed, and it will probably, you'll do a mediocre job for both. So here's Leslie, actually. She also joined our program. She absolutely loved it. She was non-technical. In 2 weeks, she had built the first product, launched it, and gotten 35 users, and was able to convert some of those in paying customers. She now won a pitch competition at .LA, which was, whatever, big competition here in LA. She's gone on to lots of cool stuff. It's been super exciting to have her, but she loved the fact that we provided a lot of support and resources, which kind of brings me to the next point. Quickly going to outline what we propose in the package. So our program, essentially, first of all, it's this step-by-step curriculum. You're going through these videos step by step, and we are literally teaching you how to not only build platforms leveraging no-code, apps leveraging no-code, but also the go-to-market strategy that's going to turn them into a startup, and all the other implications that you're going to have to understand. So that you can go through at your own pace. It's very no-fluff, action-based. We really like to just tell people a concept, explain it to them, break it down, and then be like, okay, here's what you have to do now. Here's a template to do it. Now go do it. Because it's all about learning through actions instead of learning more theory. That's not the game we're in. So we teach platforms like Bubble, like Webflow, Airtable, MemberStack, Zapier, JetBoost, and we know so many other platforms as well that we love. We're constantly adding to the curriculum as well. So that's super fun. And as I said, you get templates and blueprints, work workbooks so that you can shortcut that journey as well. And along going on that journey, right, you're going through these videos, you're applying what we're saying, you're seeing some progress, you have questions. Every week we get together for a live coaching session where we answer every founder's questions. So we have about 20 to 30 members in these sessions, and we're just answering these questions. You're part of this larger community. People are now reaching out to each other, setting up separate groups. We record all these sessions, so you can also check out all of the content. So learn from other people's questions, which is actually really useful, but also rewatch feedback. Now, you're probably asking, group coaching, but what about my startup? It's probably going to be very different. Yeah, that's the exact reason why we actually have private Slack groups, essentially, where we answer through videos. So you send us a question, we send you back a video. You can even send us a video and we send you back a video. Here's where you can, if you're at the point at which you're building a product and you have a technical question, you can send us that. We usually get people to send us their project links so we can go in and give feedback once they've created a first version of it. People have sent me pitch decks and I comment on top of them. There's all types of feedback. It goes from technical to go-to-market strategy and everything in between. On top of that, we want you to save a bunch of money as you go through this process. That's the point. That's why I left the accelerator. So we have $95,000 worth of perks and discounts that range across 120 different services. The idea here is that we are allowing you to take advantage of these discounts to minimize the amount of spend as you're going through it. So no-code tools, absolutely. We have discounts for most of the no-code tools in our program. We also have discounts for email marketing tools, for analytics tools, for payment tools, for CRM tools. And so that's of a value of $95,000, and our founders love them. We're constantly adding to that list too. Not to mention this larger global community of all these other people who are also have their private channels. There are some sort of general channels as well. There are interactive channels, and we're now building this out into an even bigger community because people are just wanting to interact, and that's awesome for us, right? So essentially, we provide you with all the things that you need to get your business off the ground quickly and cost effectively. So the content, the video curriculum, the support with the coaching and the private Slack channels and video support, the community, and all the perks to reduce the costs. And our main goal for you is honestly just to get you from what the average person does in 1 year, you're going to be achieving in 3 months. And so we just want to reduce that because we see a lot of founders who just end up taking this path, which is the traditional path, from idea to first customer. Usually that's going to cost a year of your time and $50,000+ It could take a little bit less, but that's kind of the range. I've seen people spend up to $800,000 with very little to show for it. And we really try to transition you into a process that looks like this. There's no straight lines, and there's no easy way to build any startups. Don't ever get fooled by anyone on the internet telling you there's an easy way. But if you're willing to put in the hard work and your energy's focused in the right direction, in 3 months and for less than $1,000, we can bring you really far and have you get to that first paying customer. So the best part, it's a repeatable process. You're learning this once, then you're able to build 1 startup or 100 startups. And you actually will be able to talk to us. We have people who have one sort of main business and they're testing out a startup, and we're advising them on both of those. So it's really exciting. The tuition is $1,997 for this program. So in that, you'll get the accelerator modules, you'll get the no-code modules, all the templates and blueprints, the massive perks package so that you can save a bunch of money, weekly coaching, mentorship, and all the hours of pre-recorded material that from previous sessions, private Slack video support channel, and also just be part of this awesome community and have accountability and a weekly status, which we also do every week. But since you come in with our friends from Discover, they asked us, can you give a special offer to our friends? And I said, absolutely. And Eddie was like, what do you mean? You should say abso-freaking-lutely. So we're essentially proposing a 25% discount on our program to get lifetime access to all the different things that I mentioned earlier. So that's $1,497. You'll be able to probably click a link to get access to that discount code on the right. So it's actually, you'll be brought to a page where you can actually enroll automatically. This is an offer that's only going to be going on for a couple of days. So I highly encourage you to take advantage of that. If not, it's all good. You can still come at $2,000. We'll be happy to hear from you.
One thing I want to mention for that link. So what you're actually seeing when you click that link is an example of what no code could do, because this is actually a no code product built on Webflow. That was our first experiment before we rolled out the next one. So
love it. We love Webflow.
Exactly. Even if you're purchasing through that link, this is what you can do with no code. So it's incredibly powerful, and just unintentionally, it's a demo of what you're talking about. And that
perfect.
In the YouTube chat, it's also in the YouTube description. And for anyone who registered, we're going to send that link out as well after.
Awesome. Thanks for that clarification. Because I say the link is right here. It's probably not at all there. Who knows? But anyway, I want to really just remind you that, first of all, you don't have to have a bunch of experience. You don't have to be super technical to get things off the ground. And the quicker you learn this methodology, the quicker you'll be able to find one of your ideas that sticks. And that's the point at which you can really make a huge difference. So you get lifetime access to this program. We'll also be putting this is something, by the way, that's going to be changing relatively soon. Right now, the company has been growing a bunch. So we are not going to be able to provide lifetime access. So you should lock that in immediately. If you want to hear from other students, you can check out our testimonials. Everyone's been super stoked about the kind of value we brought to them. And it literally keeps me and Eddie excited about building out new things for the community. And we might be able to put a link in the chat potentially, or potentially below, where you can actually even see a lot of those testimonials as well. Again, people talking about how excited they are that, here we have Sean talking about blown away about the attention to detail, depth of knowledge, expertise. We pretty much, what we say is we built this in only 6 months to begin with, but it actually took us 30 years of combined experience to put together something like this. So it's basically a way for you to really just miss out on a lot of the trial and error that literally 90 to 95% of all new founders or second-time founders go through. And if you're not technical, you're probably right now considering hiring expensive people. Have a little more faith in yourself. This is not rocket science. All these concepts can be broken down, and learning these platforms is not that crazy. What you need is support. You need to have accountability. You need to feel like you're not just alone, which is very common in entrepreneurship. And our aim for you essentially is to turn you into this, what we call founder of the future, or no-code founder, where essentially you're very good at sniffing out or identifying and fine-tuning opportunities as they come out quickly. As all of you know, we're in a crazy time where so many things are changing, from what we're buying to the way we're learning to the way that we're doing so many things. It's important to be able to understand when to take advantage of these, but then more importantly, to take advantage of them. So a founder who's able to actually build out his MVPs without spending a bunch of money, and who can actually adapt them as he understands what the market demand behind them actually are when they bring them to a customer. And also to be able to iterate and turn those users, those people who first engage with your brand and with your value proposition, into paying customers. And then, of course, once you have a business and you've been able to do that, let's prepare decks, let's prepare financial forecasts. We want to present this to maybe investors and all that. And the idea is figuring out what the next step of the process is for you. You might choose, after understanding the implications, that you want to bootstrap. You might choose that you want to get into an accelerator. You might choose that you want investors. And those three paths are very different, and we can really guide you through them. But more importantly, a founder of the future has a repeatable process, and he can apply it to any idea he has. So honestly, I'd love to thank the whole team that put this webinar together. I'd like to thank you for showing up. If you're ready to actually take action and to not just be in this constant loop of thinking of cool ideas and feeling frustrated 2 years later when you see people taking advantage of those ideas, I really encourage you to join us. And if not, just check this out. You can go off on your own and check it out. We're here. We provide our insight, our knowledge throughout the past 30 years, but you can also go and piece it together yourself. So thanks to everyone. I think now we're going to jump into the exciting part for you, which is the Q&A. And I hope we can answer some of your frequently asked questions too.
Let's bring Eddie back for it.
Let's do it.
Hello. Well, I saw a couple of questions already in the chat. I'm eager to answer them all. Shall we get started?
Yeah, let me grab a few. And again, for anyone who joined us late and is going to watch this via replay, we're going to email out all these links after as well. I'll try to make sure we include that testimonial link. And thank you both again, because honestly, I can't stress enough. We use no code all the time. I use it for my own startups as well. No code it has changed the way that I approach product development. So just like the things you have shared so far, super incredible. Let's hop right into the questions. One that I think is asked often, and I'm jumping out of order here, is IP, right? If you're using something like Webflow, something like Zapier, can you guys speak a bit, about the IP side? Because obviously that's a concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So when it comes to building products the traditional way, you have to essentially share your idea and with others, right? So that's essentially an opportunity to, in that case, get your idea stolen. With no code, you are entirely the owner of the of any IP, be it in this case the ID as well as the code base. So for instance, in an example, if you build with Webflow, you can actually extract all of the code yourself, delete your project, and self-host it. So you built it, it's fully yours.
Yeah, it's the IP question comes a lot as well, and it's kind of like the reality is when you're getting someone else to build it, you need to have a contract in place where it's like I'm transferring this IP to you and I'm building it for you. So when you're building it yourself, it's just like, well, you're building it yourself. And these no-code tools like Bubble, Webflow, Adalo, all these different tools, basically they allow people to build things and they don't claim ownership over the IP. Yeah. So it's great. It's just another coding language, just a visual programming language.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both very much. So the next question I wanted to bring up, they're kind of similar themes because there's pieces that were covered during the presentation. You earlier in the presentation, you actually showed a bunch of categories of the different tools, and I had never seen that before. I wanted to screenshot it. That piece of the presentation, is that something we can make available after perhaps, or any recommendations how to find that again? Because that was a really good breakdown.
Yeah, of course, we can share that. And also, just one note, what we see currently, especially in the past 6 to 12 months, we see this explosion of tools that are becoming available for builders overall. Our point of view is it's great to see so many different platforms allowing you to build. However, one approach that we use is essentially to only use platforms that have a couple of things. One, a community, a filled roadmap with features that they're planning to build. In addition, success stories. For instance, Webflow has been around for 7 years. They have various success stories. Their roadmap of what they're rolling out is always packed. They're well funded. Ultimately, if you start building on top of Webflow, you can be secure and say that within the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, my company will continue to run.
Yeah, so we've curated a list actually of the ones that we teach within our program. There's always new ones coming up. Mm-hmm. And we definitely are keeping up to pace there, and we inform all of our founders as well of all the exciting new stuff. But we also don't want to teach things that basically are going to be non-existent in 1 year or 2 years. So we really invest our time in. So what is it? It's functionality, longevity, and then community. So if that's what it takes to basically be a candidate to join our curriculum, and we get we're contacted all day long by these no-code platforms who want to be a part of our curriculum. We just have to be very selective because we're protecting your interest.
I think that's incredible because there has been so many that have sprung up and then went away. So to hear that you're curating that list and that's part of what y'all offer as part of the curriculum and as part of your resources. I mean, I want to see it again after because they change. I mean, we've built things that we became dependent on, they go away. That's a real concern, especially as you go from just building a product to actually trying to get a first customer.
Totally.
Next question I wanted to bring up, which I think you guys covered during it, is the modules. You mentioned something about lifetime access going away. Can you just speak one more time to that?
Yeah, so you get lifetime access to everything we just mentioned, which is not scalable, and which is probably the reason you should join today. But basically, you get access to the curriculum. We're constantly adding to the curriculum. Clear segment that we built in 10 days for $40. We literally only built that so that we could teach modules. We could teach no-code tools that we use to build that. So it's like we're adding modules, and so you'll get lifetime access to that. You get lifetime access to the group coaching. You get lifetime access to the support channel, the video support channel. So it's like our whole goal was like, hey, how could we basically bring the value that you would see people usually charging $50,000 for and bring it under $2,000? And so that's what we're focused on. And right now our students are loving it. So I guess we're doing something right?
Glad to hear. We are kind of close to at time, but if it's cool with you guys, I would love to take one more question. Do you guys?
Yeah,
we're here for as long as you want. Hey, if you want to take 3 more, I know that your time is probably crunched, but we're here for the people.
So I want to grab this one because this is a real question, which this is someone with a problem, which it sounds like, especially inside the course, you offer this type of support. But someone has a social media agency. They're thinking of how do they build a no-code app to handle client requests. I think it's a very real use case.
Yeah, so currently in our program, we have a lot of individuals that are currently business owners and essentially join our program to build internal tools out. So in this case, you can definitely build an app that handles client requests. In addition, something that we also see that individuals learn those no-code skills and resell, in that case, products to their clients, right? So in this case, if you have a social media agency, you might want to create a new service that you can essentially charge your clients on top of that. All, in this case, built with no-code and essentially have a new revenue stream for your company.
Exactly. It's also like, it's crazy what this does. I mean, there are a number of different things. I mean, it's turning designers into developers, basically. So you don't have to hire a developer when you're doing a client project. You can keep 100% of that profit. It's helping people build internal tools to be more effective at work and not have to do all those mundane tasks over and over. It's incredible what can be done. It's disrupting a lot of things. We see people, as Eddie said, like they learn these skills to build their startup, but then they apply them in their day job. They apply them potentially in a separate business that they have. Like Aaron, I mean, did you also get that moment that both me and Eddie got where it's just like, oh my God, I can do this myself. It is so quick. I thought I was an idiot, non-technical my whole life. And now I realize like there's something like, it's confidence, I think. We always get people. Yeah.
The best moment in building a startup, and you mentioned it, is the moment you make the first $1. If you have to put that off for a year because you're spending all the money on development and those different pieces, you're putting off the best part. So actually like validating an idea and then getting paid the first $1. I mean, I have framed the first $1 for many of my silly ideas over time. Like it's that powerful a feeling. So getting there faster with no code, it's incredible. It has changed the way we do it.
Totally. And it's really just about marrying those two things. It's like no code is pretty much building nothing for no one unless you understand startup methodology. Startup methodology is pretty much nothing unless you actually know how to build, launch, test, iterate, so that's why we chose to marry these two things. It was just an area where we thought that the education systems were not really providing these hard skills. That's why they come to us for partnerships. We saw that like boot camps were not really teaching any of this stuff. We saw that people who were teaching aspects of it, there were so many gaps. And then like the support, it's all about humans. This is about getting to an end goal. It's always going to be about humans. People nerd out about functionalities and all these things. When it comes down to it, there's a goal you're trying to do that could be more efficient at work. That can be essentially like get more customers, but rarely it's, I want to learn a new tool. Like it's usually, I want to learn this new tool because this is what it's going to allow me to do. And I think we focus on that because and on the people behind it. And that's what's kind of brought us where we are. That's why we consider ourselves a non-technical institute,
Very cool. We are basically at time. One thing I do want to bring up, it's not a question, is if I understand correctly, there also is a payment plan for your course, right? Just want to call that out. So
yes,
if you're building a startup, you're mindful of cash flow. It is something to think about. And, to call it out, spending money on development is incredibly expensive. If I knew courses like this existed before some of my earlier choices in my career, the amount I would have saved by learning more about these things would have paid off, 1 million times fold, basically. If this is something people are thinking about, there is a payment plan option.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely,
yeah. There's a 3 payment option, and then also to your comment, I think the course that Christian and I developed was pretty much the course that we wished we had when we started our entrepreneurial journey. I mean, just the amount of time, this would just save is incredible. And this is also what we see across all of our students, this aha moment of like, holy moly, I can actually do this, which I love seeing, by the way.
Well, I am going to have to call it because I have something in a little bit. Yep. Christian, Eddie, thank you guys for being here so much. Before you leave, I'm going to have you make one more comment. For everyone who's here in the YouTube chat and has stayed with us throughout the hour, let us know, let's thank Christian and Eddie, because this is an incredible amount of knowledge they shared today. We really appreciate them being here. While they do that, would you mind, is there any last words you would share with the audience today? Any last parting words of wisdom about no code or building startups or whatever you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think we both have parting words. Eddie, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest realization that I had for myself and that I see across all of our students and anyone that we work with is essentially the empowerment that you can do it. You don't need to rely on other individuals to build your idea. And then ultimately just the relief that you get, regardless if the idea works or doesn't, from taking your idea that you have in your head into the real world and testing it. For many, it is such a transformational effort because in many instances, they spent years thinking about stuff. And then they now have a tool that essentially allows them to release and test it in the market. And I think, the big point that I want to give away for everyone, you can do it. You essentially have the tools today to essentially bring your ideas to life.
Totally. Yeah, I completely second that. I would add on top of that basically like the way that I saw this when I discovered no code and I had seen all the hardships I had gone through in not being technical, it also made me feel a responsibility. And so for those of you now who have just discovered this thing called no code, it's now your responsibility that when you see founders making these very expensive mistakes that are taking them so much time, educate them, teach them even just one or two of the points that we taught you in this. If you don't join the program, that's totally fine. We just want this to really get in the hands of more people so that people can continue to believe in their dreams. Because what we see over and over, and what I'm seeing in the normal startup world is, I have a startup idea. I try it. It doesn't work out because I'm non-technical. I stop believing in my potential as an entrepreneur. And that is the most that's the most terrifying thing that I can think of because it leads people to much sadder things. And honestly, it's not rocket science. I just want to repeat it over and over. It's right now, this is so fun. Like we take great pleasure in doing this. And if you want to work with us, great. If not, just spread the word. It's our responsibility. And yeah, Aaron, Eddie, and everyone else, you guys are awesome. Thanks.
Preaching the no-code gospel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Aaron.
Bye-bye.
Take care.